are the top bodybuilder.
Right, yeah.
How long have you been the top bodybuilder?
Well, I've not been beaten for the last 7 years. And I won the Mr. Olympia contest 5 years now. This is now the 6th year.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We've got company episode 5. In this episode, we're going to take a very unique and interesting look at a very, very iconic and popular person, to say the least, that has ever existed on planet Earth. So with that, I would like to introduce my co-host. What's up, Dan?
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going?
So you might be wondering why my co-host is wearing a shirt with Arnold's face on it.
Oh, this thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's pretty apparent. This episode is about the iconic Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's transcended everything, right? You can, if you look back at his history and his life and you look at it now, it's kind of bizarre and amazing some of the things that this man has accomplished in his life.
Absolutely.
We are obviously both huge fans, which who isn't, right? I mean, it's hard to find a person that's like, I fucking hate Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? It's very hard. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take, like I said, a unique look at his career and his life and kind of do it in a kind of like a funny way where we're going to talk about a lot of the things that he's accomplished in film, right? Not necessarily in real life, but how crazy it is and how iconic and super famous that he was able to do all these things in all these different kinds of films, which is kind of unheard of. You don't really see a lot of actors and you look at their catalog and they have all of those kind of different things that they've done or portrayed in different movies. It's very rare. So yeah. With that, I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Dan.
Yeah, so I mean, you'd be hard to find a film star that's a larger cultural figure than Arnold has become. You know, like he's kind of a part of anyone who enjoys films. He kind of becomes part of your life in some way. You know, if you are a movie lover, there's at least one Arnold movie that you're probably into, even if you haven't seen it yet. You might love The Sixth Day, and you don't even think you never saw it, so you have no idea.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's actually a really good point. And that goes to the point of what I'm saying is that he's done so many different characters, so many different styles and kinds of movies that it'd be almost impossible for you to try and like find a person that was like, I hate every movie he's ever been in.
Well, it's interesting too. He's really permeated the cultural lexicon in that he was a weightlifter. He was Mr. Olympia, Mr. Universe. You know, he held all these, bodybuilding. I should call him a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Held all these bodybuilding records and titles. And he really transitioned that into a successful film career. And I think he's kind of the blueprint for your, The Rock and now, Dave Bautista and now John Cena.
Right.
And I think like in a lot of ways, he set the stage for those guys, because he was, I think, when you look at action films pre-Arnold, it's kind of interesting because it's always these real leading man types that are, dashing, handsome, very charismatic. Not to say that Arnold isn't all those things. Right. However, he is born in Austria and imported himself to America. So I think prior to Arnold, I can't imagine there were many action stars that had that kind of believability. And I think that's
what it was.
Yeah, and I think that he really set a standard of believability for action movies and for stars in them, because when you look at a guy like Arnold, it's not a hard leap to think like, oh yeah, that guy can rip someone in half. You're just kind of like, yep, that checks out.
It's super believable.
Yeah.
And going back to something you said, which kind of kicks it off, is he's an Austrian-born man who came to America, right? With essentially nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wanted to be this, you know, this big star. And that was like his goal. It's what he wanted. We were actually talking about this before we were recording, and there's a line in Pumping Iron, which, what does he say in that line?
So
Or
yeah,
in
Pumping
that
Iron, which is an incredible documentary if you've never seen it. It details the lives of Arnold and a few others, Lou Ferrigno being another notable one. But it details their lives going towards this this weightlifting bodybuilding competition.
Right.
And Arnold is a, you know, kind of still a fresh face in Hollywood. He's taken the bodybuilding world by storm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and that's something that I think that the normal person knows about Arnold's accomplishments in film and what he's done in the films he's done, but not a lot of people know just how important he was to the bodybuilding world.
For
like,
sure.
He is a huge deal in that world. The entire current bodybuilding scope and every competition is all based on what he brought to the table.
Yeah.
You know, like the most popular bodybuilding competition in the world isn't even Mr. Olympia anymore. It's the Arnold Classic.
Right.
And
he as himself, the person that what he did was he was a specimen. I mean, people didn't look like how he looked.
No.
Until he came along, it was just people were like in awe of him, which is why it helped to kind of propel him to this stardom, because
absolutely,
yeah, he was a person that you looked at and it was almost like he wasn't human.
Well, right? Another great example would be, you know, look at comic books and comic book heroes pre-Arnold, and then look at them after Arnold's rise to fame, and you have a very large change in terms of the definition and like what people were drawing their characters at, because he became a new benchmark in human anatomy. You know, like he's beyond, you know, he's just such a monolithic figure of our culture.
Right. And what he says in the film was what did he say?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't even get to this.
No, it's all right. We need to introduce that anyway, because we need to understand where he came from.
Even if you're not into documentaries, watch Pumping Iron. It's literally like one of the best docs I've seen. It really got me into documentaries. I wasn't much of a doc fan growing up, and after seeing that film, it kind of got me into documentaries in a really big way.
Sure.
But in that film, there's a very famous scene where Arnold's driving, and they're asking him kind of what he plans to do and how he plans to spend the remainder of his years after he's, you know, won all these amazing bodybuilding competitions. And he basically states that he wants to continue doing, you know, he wants to do films. He wants to become a movie star and be famous, just like, you know, the American dream, just like everybody else.
Right.
And then he says, after films, he says it so kind of nonchalantly, but he says, maybe I'll get into politics. And it's so crazy to watch now when you see like this, you know, I think at the time he was like super young.
He was like 22, maybe 23.
Yeah, he was like very young. Like, and just to see him saying that he was going to get into politics and then to know his life currently is kind of amazing.
And a guy who, I mean, the English language was tough for him.
Yeah,
it's still tough for him. I don't understand how he still has this crazy accent, but I love that he's kept it, because it's kept him who he is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, without that accent, you almost are like, that's not him.
It puts him at another level, right?
Yeah.
It you know, it makes him so iconic because of that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, this, you know, you have this Austrian-born guy who barely speaks English, and he wants to be a movie star. He wants the whole American dream, and then he says he wants to go into politics. Like,
yep.
You know, it would be crazy for an average American who came from nothing, became a bodybuilder. Let's say it was a black, white, Spanish guy, doesn't matter. And they had this documentary, let's say, and they say they want to be this movie star and politician, and then they end up doing it. Even that would be crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now think about this guy who's not even from this country, who does all this stuff, and then actually it comes to fruition, right? And So what I wanted to kind of go over, right? I wanted to go over some of the things that, this man has done in films. So one thing we've already mentioned is he hasn't been a bodybuilder in a film. He is, or really was, a bodybuilder, and he won multiple championships, and he was the man, right? He was the benchmark. Pardon the pun, right? So he was the benchmark for that.
He was the bench press.
Right, he was the bench press for it. And like, that's just one thing that he's, done in film. So
it's one thing he's already, even before he started being in films, he was already kind of a mythical, legendary figure.
Exactly. So I'm going to try, we don't necessarily have to go in order, but I'm going to try and like keep it in some kind of an order. And one thing I want to talk about is probably his biggest film, or the biggest film for him in the beginning was Conan the Barbarian, right?
Absolutely.
And it basically propelled him. So he had done a couple films prior. He was being seen in the Hollywood, in Hollywood, but Conan comes out in, I think, 77, and that's it, right? He becomes this almost shot out of a cannon mega star right off the bat. So this guy is a barbarian, right? He is in like a mythical kind of world, right? With knights and kings, and he is Conan the Barbarian. And that's just like one thing that, just to kick off, he's a barbarian with a huge sword, and he's the man, right?
And also like that story, comic book, whatever, what have you, in terms of Conan himself, there weren't, prior to Arnold, there was really no one who could play Conan.
No.
Like you can't even imagine anyone but Arnold as Conan, right, to the point where he essentially is that character now. Right. If you imagine Conan, every Conan since is simply, every drawing of Conan is basically an amalgamation of Arnold's different faces. It's all Arnold. He has become that character, right. And just as he's become the Terminator, he is also Conan.
Right. And forgive me, 82 was Conan, 77 was Pumping Iron. I got them mixed up. But 82 was Conan, and then he does Conan the Destroyer. So he does that. That's part 2. So he's still a barbarian, right? And then now he's a mega star, right? He's probably getting calls left and right for a million different roles. And along comes a film, which I wanted to talk about this too, because it's kind of unheard of. Along comes a film called Terminator, right? Or The Terminator. And here's this guy who shot out of a cannon, becomes the ultimate action hero. Think of that word. Action hero, protagonist, gets this film called Terminator, and decides, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a robot, and I'm going to be the villain of the film.
I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. I was told that she's here. Could I see her, please?
No, can't see her. She's making a statement.
Where is she?
Look, it may take a while. If you want to wait, there's a bench over there.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
It's pretty unheard of, just that alone, because, that doesn't happen often. You don't get this action hero who comes out of nowhere, who does action films and shot out of rock, and then all of a sudden plays a bad guy in a film. It doesn't happen very often.
No. And again, like, he was such an imposing figure. Again, I can't stress enough, like, look at every movie star pre-Arnold, and then look at the world of film after him, and it's like a completely different landscape. All of a sudden the ideas of what was believable for your either your powerful character started to become much more clear, where you thought, well, if it either he has to look like Arnold, because Arnold looks like he can do anything, so in this film he plays a robot from the future. So now he's already played Conan, which is a mythological, like, kind of like barbarian character, or whatever. Now he's playing a robot, and a robot
from the future. So now he's already time traveled.
Yeah.
In his very early career, he's already played a robot and time traveled. Right? This is just the beginning, right, of some of the
This is
things.
what his fourth film.
It's like maybe
I think.
his ninth, maybe, but a couple other ones were like just him. He wasn't a star yet, right? Conan
Right.
was. So let's say it's his third starring mega star Arnold Schwarzenegger film, because it's Conan 1, then Conan the Destroyer, and then Terminator, right?
Right.
So now that that's where he is, and then we don't need to mention Red Sonja because it's basically Conan, even though he's not Conan in the film. I don't know if a lot of people.
But still, like, it's kind of Red Sonja itself is kind of an interesting thing, because as a kid, I thought Conan was real. Like, not Conan. I thought Red Sonja was a Conan film. You know, like
most people. So did I. I mean, when we were younger, that's what we all thought.
Yeah. So it's like,
which is why I said what. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if that was ever the intention for Red Sonja, was to put Arnold in it and make people just feel like, yeah, it's kind of like they have Conan in it, even though he's not Conan. But you couldn't tell me that as a kid.
No.
As a kid, I loved Red Sonja, and I used to call I think I used to just call Red Sonja Conan 3.
Yeah.
Like, I think I came to that conclusion as a child that it's like, oh, it's clearly the third Conan.
There's no way that you are the only person. Well, I did the same thing. And there's no way that we're the only two people that thought that way, because Red Sonja comes out, and again, this guy's a mega star, so they're like flocking to the theaters to see it. And it's because it's him, right?
Yeah.
So that movie is kind of a wash because he's the same character, even though it's a good movie, right? And then he's like moving right along, and now, mind you, he's been a villain, and the Terminator is a very successful film when it first came out. I mean, super successful, right? James Cameron, obviously, like he puts together this crazy film, and look at the films now. I mean, they're still making them based on this film. So now he does Red Sonja, same kind of thing. Now he's does Commando. Mm-hmm. So now he's this amazing military, like Marine, or I think he's a Special Forces Marine guy in the film. And that's when I feel like a lot of the lines, like the one-liners and things like that, started to really peak out, and people were noticing that as a thing.
Your daughter's safe, Colonel. Whether she stays that way is up to you. My people got some business with you, and if you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate, right?
Wrong.
Because I think I'll Be Back didn't really hit until later.
Yeah.
Where people were watching Terminator over and over again.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you think of any other movie star that has a catchphrase as themselves? Like, because I'll Be Back became something that he said in other movies playing the Terminator.
Right. It transcended the character.
Yeah. So it became just his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking about this, and I'm like, I don't think I can point out any other actor that has done that. Like, I don't think I can point out any other actor that has that history where their catchphrases just become part of their overall, filmography.
And if there is one, there's nowhere near at the level of what that had become or has become, right? It's just, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. So now Commando's, he's the special forces guy, and he's the man and whatever. He does Raw Deal. Raw Deal's
him being the man is a common theme.
I mean, it's just always kind of the man.
Yeah.
So he does Raw Deal, which, it's now we're in the middle of the 80s. So you have these action style films that all kind of blend together. Yep. It's like all the same movie. Like if one ended, they could just start the next one, and it would all just look exactly and feel exactly the same.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, and he's just the badass dude, in that film as well. Now, you get now he's playing a lot of military kind of action heroes, guns, but a lot of that had to do with the timing, like we said. So the 80s was, especially the mid 80s, the action films, like I said, were like very similar, and they were all kind of the same. They all had the same kind of music, the same kind of like cadence and feel, and he just fit right into all of that.
Yep.
Right. So now you have all these films that are coming out that are, very, very similar and all that. So now you get Predator. So now he's another special forces dude who's, again, the man. But I want to talk about that film too, because that film, I mean, the level of cult following that film has is kind of interesting, because when you look at that movie, I think obviously when it first came out, it definitely wasn't super popular in the theaters or anything. It probably didn't even do that well. But then what it became, it's crazy what it became. So like if you look
Predator?
Yeah. If you look at the ratings on it now, I'm almost positive that the ratings on that movie that you see online or wherever you see were not those ratings in 87.
Right.
And it's crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely met with like mostly, I think, negative reviews at the time. I think it was just looked at as like it's just action, sci-fi, whatever. I think that was like at the time, I think that they didn't really know. I think the age of the blockbuster was really just starting too. You had you had guys like Arnold and Sylvester Stallone who weren't necessarily making films that were critically successful, but became financially enormous.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people were going to the theaters to see these films, just to see these guys kick ass. Like basically that was it, right? To see them kick ass. And a fun, interesting fact about Predator. I don't know if you know this. You might know this because maybe we've spoken about it, but it's interesting. Jean-Claude Van Damme, at this time, was also kind of on the rise in his own niche, right? The martial arts action film niche, which is very different from a lot of the Arnold films, right? They're different feels. They're not like the same. So they kind of were running parallel in this time. And you have Van Damme, who was getting some movie films, getting movie deals or whatever. And he actually got asked to play the Predator, like in the costume.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
And what's cool about that little thing, that little piece of history, is that he decided, because this is a big deal, he was going to be in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie playing the main villain in this suit, right? That's a big deal because you get the credit for it, right? Even though you'd never see that it was Jean-Claude Van Damme's face. The credit is amazing, right, to be in that film. He didn't like the idea of people not seeing him.
Right.
So he actually turned it down, and another stuntman ended up being the Predator in the suit. And the reason why he turned it down was because he had another offer for a movie called Bloodsport. And Bloodsport is what catapulted Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, Bloodsport exploded.
Exploded him. So it's kind of cool and interesting, that story, that he was like, he took a chance on himself, because that's a big chance. You get an opportunity to play the main villain in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie in 1987. Like, so anyway, it's a pretty cool little tidbit. So now you're moving along, and you have your Running Man, which I love this movie so much.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's just so good. But that movie. So now this movie is kind of interesting because it's a survival movie, but it's like a game, right?
Yeah.
And humans are like the game, right? And death is the ultimate. Like, death is it. You lose in this game, you die.
And I think it's actually like one of Arnold's most I think enduring films. Like, that's a film that I think is still holds an enduring legacy, more so than a lot of others might. I think like The Running Man is still watched pretty heavily now. I think it has kind of a new life as a cult classic.
For sure. I mean, and if you see like a lot of movies later on did like the whole survival kind of feel, right? And in this movie, you know, it takes place in the future. It's, you know, it's a sci-fi thriller, but he's just kind of a dude, you know, in the film. But I think he's a policeman who was like falsely accused or something like that. But now he's a cop, which is not even that crazy, right? It gets crazier for some of the things, you know, that he's doing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But we're gonna skip over some, and I want to get to Total Recall, because now in Total Recall, we already have Arnold, who has time traveled, been a robot, been a barbarian, fought an alien. He's been in the military.
Before we actually get to Total Recall, we shouldn't gloss over Twins.
Well, Twins is later.
I think Twins actually is in 88 and Total Recall is in 90.
Oh.
So
Twins
right.
Okay, so that's even better. Go ahead. That if Twins is before it, because
Twins comes before Total Recall, and Twins is a very different film for Arnold. It's his first. I mean, you can consider Hercules in New York a comedy. One of his first films.
It's the description says it's a comedy.
Yeah, it's a
whatever that means.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it's a comedy.
Right,
but
whatever
Twins
you say.
is his first blockbuster comedy, and Twins was huge when it came out, and it was a very, you know, at the time, I feel like there wasn't ever a lot of range expected out of someone like Arnold. You weren't really expecting him to do comedy. Right. So him doing Twins was like a huge left turn at the time. And, you know, nowadays I think it's much more common to see your action stars doing, you know, branching out and doing other roles. You know, it's maybe, you know, it's kind of cute to think about, but they all do it often enough that it's not a surprising thing.
Right. And it's definitely because of him. Because nobody,
yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, if you look back at a lot of action heroes in the 80s, they were that was their thing. They only did those kinds of movies. He was the only guy doing that. Even Sly.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone stayed on brand, and Arnold took chances. Now, speaking of Arnold and comedies, just a quick little story here. There's a famous story that Arnold does Twins, and Twins is huge. You know, it's a huge comedy
alongside Danny DeVito.
Really wonderful film.
Just a side note before you go on. So now he's playing a twin. He's a twin now.
Yeah.
So that's one thing he's done in his career. Yeah. He's been a twin. Like, it's so crazy.
A funny story about that is that afterwards, you know, he was getting a lot of offers for comedies, and he would get offers for comedies very much. And at the time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Willis, and I think one other guy, basically the team who created Planet Hollywood, which was the chain of restaurants owned by these movie stars that would have, you know, lots of Hollywood memorabilia and all that kind of things. And Arnold was a real supporter of that company, and he really did most of the press for them. And, you know, he really kind of pushed Planet Hollywood as his own for a long time before, I guess, they went. I don't know if there's even one left anymore. But Arnold got a script that because him and Sylvester Stallone were in such competition for box office success, Arnold got a script for a film, and he told Sylvester Stallone he really wanted to do it, and that he wasn't sure he'd be able to do it, and he's dying to do it. It's the best script he's ever read. And he tells Sylvester Stallone all of this, and Sylvester Stallone hears this and campaigns for this part. And the part he was campaigning for was the lead in the film Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which is a famously terrible film that bombed in the box office and did absolutely terribly. And Arnold basically fooled Sylvester Stallone into being in that film, which I always found just an amazing story.
That is an amazing story. I knew where you were going with that whole thing right off the bat. That movie is terrible.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it. I remember
I've seen it.
You've seen it?
Yeah, for sure seen it, and for sure know that it's terrible.
I can imagine.
It's just so bad.
I think it was one of the first times as a kid that I think I asked my mom. I think I saw the trailer in a movie theater with my mother, and I remember wanting to see it just because as a kid, I would watch anything that Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger was
right,
in.
right.
And I think I remember asking my mom to see it, and my mom was just kind of like, "Oh, no."
And for your mom to be like that is pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
and yeah, exactly. And for my mother will watch absolutely anything.
Right.
She'll be just glad that they did it. She'll be like, "Look, they made it. They
did it. Right.
Make a movie.
They're making a movie, and it's out."
Yeah, they finished it. Craft Service did so well.
Right. There are actors. There are actors in it.
It came out. Congratulations, you
right.
guys are all winners.
Right, right. Yeah, so that's a very interesting story. But yeah, so now this guy, he's crossing over and he's doing something unheard of at the time, and he's this huge action star, this huge star in general, and he decides to do Twins, which is a great movie, right? It's hilarious, it's emotional, it has like a soft side, it has comedy, It has like a lot of things. It's like the perfect storm of a film.
And really shows Arnold's range
and his
as an actor.
Exactly.
My name is Julius, and I'm your twin brother.
Oh, obviously. The moment I sat down, I thought I was looking into a mirror.
We are not identical twins.
Oh, no?
Which, and then you have Danny DeVito, who's great,
Mm-hmm.
All that. So now you get to Total Recall, right? And he's already done all these things that we're mentioning. Now he's in the future again, but not only is he in the future, but he gets to travel to another planet, which is Mars. So now he is now he's an actual space traveler, and he's actually been to another planet.
Yep.
He even gets to experience what death is like in space.
Yeah,
almost death.
He gets what happens in that film is definitely not what happens in real life. I would love to know.
Are you sure?
I would love to know the concept. I would love to just be a fly on the wall of the pitch meetings for that, for those scenes where it's like, oh, so what happens when you go into a vacuum of space is your eyeballs pop out, and you just start screaming until you die.
I think that the writers and the directors and everybody were like, we need to have him gargling because of what he sounds like. We need to have this in the film just to they probably were making fun of him, and they were like, screw it, we're going to make this shit. We're going to make him almost die in this film, and it's going to sound amazing because the gurgling, it's just amazing.
As a kid, it used to terrify me.
Of course.
That scene used to absolutely terrify me.
You know what terrified me in that movie? Obviously, when I was we were young, but when he's in the airport and he has the disguise as the woman.
Yeah. And
she's like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because the robot that gets stuck.
And it says it malfunctions and it opens.
And then the way that it opens, it's just pretty creepy looking.
It is pretty bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird. But anyway, side note, they did a remake to this and it was god awful. They should have never even did that.
Yeah, a huge mistake.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. So now he's done that and he's just moving right along, right, in his life and his career. Already he's maybe 10 films in, maybe a little bit more than that. And when you look at the catalog, you're like, this guy is doing so much different shit in films, right?
And at the time, I think the highest box office grossing actor
had to have been. So now Total Recall is a huge hit. We all know. It's another cult classic now. I mean, like I said, it got remade, which is terrible. They should never do that. But now we move on, and he decides that he wants to teach kindergarten.
Yeah.
And he is a cop in the film, but he does teach kindergarten. So
he does do both.
He does both. So now you have this guy who does this film, which, by the way, is another amazing film. Like, he is pumping out just hits.
Yeah.
Which you look at a lot of actors now, they're not doing that.
No, not at all.
They may be making films, but they're not pumping out hits. Not the way he was.
Even guys like The Rock, who is arguably today's Arnold. He doesn't have the success that Arnold has. You know, I'm gonna tell you something really quick. I'm a huge Rock fan in film. Obviously, we're wrestling fans, so we saw him way before we knew this was coming with him. But I'm gonna say, this may be my opinion, but I think it's right. He has done more bad films than he's done good. I think so. Yeah, I don't even think that's a hot take. I think that's just a stone cold fact at this point.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so it's pretty crazy that this is the case, and now you have this guy who decides, gets this script, and people are like thinking of him for this script, and it's genius.
Yeah.
It just all comes together great. The kids in this movie are great. Right. And the comedy, the way that it's the back and forth of this like hulk of a man, dealing with these kindergarten kids. But he just says, I'm going to be a kindergarten teacher now.
Yeah. And around that time, actually, after Kindergarten Cop, he also, he, believe it or not, directed a little known episode of the show Tales from the Crypt on HBO.
Wow. I didn't know that.
He directed and starred in a Tales from the Crypt episode at the time, back when Tales from the Crypt was kind of a hot show. Like it used to be, it was advertised. It was, people really liked it,
Right.
And,
so we can add director to his list.
Yeah. He the little known director credit, but he directed a pretty decent episode of Tales from the Crypt.
I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
Not a bad episode. There's nothing in there. Of course,
and
Arnold's in it.
He's in it. Okay, he is in it.
Yeah, he's in it. But just one of those things that I feel like a lot of people don't really know.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that, and I know everything about this guy. That's pretty freaking cool, man. So he's a director. So now let's just move forward. He's a director.
Yep.
That's it. He's a director now. So he's been a kindergarten teacher. Great film. We move on. He plays Terminator 2, or he plays the Terminator in Terminator 2, which is also very interesting because now I think that they all realized, they were like, we can't have him be the villain again.
Not anymore.
At
that time.
Yeah, now
it was just like you would be wasting it to have him be the villain again. To have him be this voiceless villain would be a waste of who you have.
Right. So James Cameron,
long collaborative partner for Arnold.
Yeah. Oh, big time. But what's genius about this is the way that he went about flipping it, because it very easily, because of the classic that was The Terminator, it would have been very easy to screw this up.
Mm-hmm.
And Terminator 2 Judgment Day, to me, and it could be because of where I land as far as my age, is the best Terminator movie ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the first one is still really great, but
it's great.
2 is absolutely. I mean, I think 2 is a legendary film. I think it also is the first film that anyone acknowledged was a, people used to always dislike sequels, and I feel like Terminator 2 was the first sequel that was better than the original.
Right.
It was the first sequel, and it was for years the example. For years when sequels were made and people would go, oh, why are they going to make a sequel to this film?
Right.
Nowadays, no one even asks that question. All people are like, movies have franchises planned before they even are released.
Yeah.
But at the time, people think like, oh, well, why are you going to have a sequel to this? They already got it right the first time. And all of a sudden Terminator 2 comes out and it's like, well, this is why.
Right. And he now dives right back into this role. And the role's obviously a little different, but that movie, I mean, to me, it's one of my all-time favorite movies I've ever seen, like in my life. If it's on TV at any point, I'll just keep it on. Like, I don't care, right? It's that good of a film. And it also, believe it or not, his acting chops, right? We'll talk about that really quick. In the first movie, he didn't really need to do a whole lot of acting. That's just, it's not me. I'm not saying anything crazy by saying that. But when you get to this film, he really needed to do a lot of work because he needed to play this android from the future who is almost an AI kind of feel, where he's like learning and he's developing somewhat of an emotion without an emotion, right? Because he's a robot, and he does it so great and so believable that, you know, you fall in love with the character. And his relationship with Edward Furlong, with John Connor, and it's pretty impressive when you look back at it now, given the scope of the film, what kind of film it is, what he did with the character.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty awesome.
And I think if you watch the film now and you stay until the end, at the end of that film, if you listen closely, you can still hear the sound of thousands of teenage boys' tears hitting the ground, which is something that no action film was able to do prior. You know, action films were not emotional, and Terminator 2 really kind of stepped up it was the benchmark for action films.
Yeah, I mean, it's how do you not feel something, or something hits you inside when his hand turns to the thumbs up and then it just goes into it's pretty.
I mean, spoiler alert for a movie that's 30 years old, but
you know what? I'm not even gonna say spoiler alert for it, because if you haven't seen this movie that's 30 years old, whatever, that's your fault. And then this movie in particular, like if you haven't seen this, that's completely your fault. But yeah, so now I want to go to something interesting. The next thing that I want to mention is, now he gets a script, and the script, and he obviously takes the
I know
script.
Where you're going with this already.
And it's so interesting because now you have this amazing action hero, right, who is a megastar, right? Now he takes a script where he is playing an action star in an action movie. Now, I don't think people are really understanding what I'm saying. He's playing an action movie star, meaning an actor, in a movie that's an action movie.
Right. He's playing in... Okay, so we're talking about Last Action Hero.
Right.
Now, I got a little bit to say about this film. Now, it's far and wide. I mean, Arnold's done some questionable films in his old age, so who knows what his worst film might be considered now.
Right.
But at the time, it was widely considered a pretty huge flop and, you know, a bad film. Now, here are two things about that film that people don't take into account. Now, the first thing, another movie came out the same day The Last Action Hero came out. Do you know what film that was?
No.
A little film called Jurassic Park.
Right, 1993.
So The Last Action Hero opened alongside Jurassic Park, which was literally going to show people dinosaurs. The Last Action Hero, now, we might have to do, I think we should do an episode about Jurassic Park.
Oh, no. It was just on TV, and it's so funny that you said that, because I was already thinking about it.
Yeah, the cultural impact of Jurassic Park is unreal. Like, to the point, I went to the museum with my dad to see props from Jurassic Park.
Right.
They were put into the Museum of Natural History immediately.
Yeah.
You know, so like, this movie culturally was so huge that The Last Action Hero really didn't stand a chance. Now, it's not a good movie. It's not good. However, for the time, which is 93, it is the most meta, self-aware, kind of bizarre film that's out there.
Breaks the fourth wall or third wall.
Breaks the fourth wall. Yeah. And again, I think is a testament to Arnold's ability to take chances.
Yeah.
You know, he was doing this really kind of forward-thinking, crazy film. And which kind of leads me to Arnold's later career, because if you look at his late career, he really kind of wanted to make people laugh. You know, I think he had kind of gotten tired of the gun-toting action hero and the, you know, killing 70 people per film kind of thing. I think
or at least the stigma that that's all he can be or do.
Exactly. Like, I think that he kind of, you know, if you look at a lot of his later work, he really just kind of wanted to make people laugh and kind of have like make these films that inspired joy for the most part, because after The Last Action Hero, you get True Lies.
Great movie.
Yeah, you get he teams up with his long collaborative partner James Cameron again to make a kind of a fun action film, you know,
and True Lies comes out, and I remember like seeing this in the theater, and like another perfect blend. You don't get any more of a perfect blend than action comedy thriller than this movie.
Yeah.
It does everything like almost perfectly.
Yeah.
And then you have Tom Arnold in it, who's great. Like, he's the best co-star for this film.
Absolutely. Best possible sidekick you could have.
Ever, right? And then you have Jamie Lee Curtis, like all these, even Elijah Dushku is the daughter.
Yeah.
Like,
it's an incredible cast and just a really satisfying film to watch. Even till this day, it's a very it's such a milk and cookies, you know, just comforting movie. You know, it's really, really great to watch now. And it's still, again, like, it's a movie that never takes itself too seriously, which I think is like a really common thread in Arnold's later work, is that he kind of didn't want to do this, like, I'm going to be the most badass of badasses. And when he returns to it and, you know, kind of his late career stages, it all feels a bit forced. You know, you really kind of feel like this is, you know, a huge, monstrous looking, intimidating man that I think truly just wanted to be a comedian. You know, I think he wanted to make people laugh.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, because when you look at, you start to look at his career and you really dissect it, it really moved in that direction. And it almost that was all he was trying to do.
Yeah, after True Lies, he does Junior.
Right. So before you mention that, so I want to talk about that, because now we're moving along, and something's up with your audio.
Yeah, sorry.
So
just decided to go crazy here.
So we're moving along, and you know, in True Lies, Last Action Hero. So that was one thing that we obviously were talking about, and we were saying how he is now playing an action. He is now parodying himself, playing an action hero within an action movie, which is playing an actor in the movie. Yeah. So he's done that. Now True Lies comes out, and he's a secret agent, which is not that crazy, right? He's already been kind of that before. Now he decides to do a film called Junior. So now, going along with the whole kind of plot of this podcast is talking about all the things that this man has done.
Yep.
Now, he takes this film, and he is the first man to ever be pregnant.
Easily Arnold
Schwarzenegger.
No way. Like, find a movie before Junior that's about a man getting pregnant and then having the baby. At the end of the movie, the baby's had.
Yeah, right. This happens.
Yeah, it 100% happens. And if you're asking questions, that's good. You should have lots of questions.
And you should also go see the movie.
Yeah. Watch it so you can see how it's delivered.
Be patient. Oh, did you see that? Right there. Yeah. What's his little foot go? Up there. Oh, it feels so good. Wait.
Larry?
I mean...
What's going on?
Why, nothing. What?
You were touching him. Oh, God. Oh, no. No. I can't deal with this.
Can't deal with what?
What are you? What are you two, like a... What are you, a twosome?
What? Whoa.
What is going on around here?
He's pregnant.
I'm gonna be a mama too.
Right. It's so crazy. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing we can go into. But like, it's just insane that like already, I mean, he's not even halfway done with the films that he's done. And he's already been a pregnant man. It's just like crazy. It's unheard of. Then you have, you have movies like Eraser. He's kind of the same kind of dude, which is, I like that movie. I always liked it. Jingle All the Way. It's kind of like a comedy film that it fits in the line of, he does a couple action films, then he'll do like a movie comedy like this, and then a comedy where it's like, heartwarming or whatever. And that's cool. But then I want to talk about, now this is super iconic. So now we get to Batman and Robin, which is a terrible film. Don't go watch it. Don't even try.
Or watch it if you want to just kind of see how bad it can get. When you watch,
don't spread this, man. Don't do it.
I think I don't know, because like you could watch your Man of Steels and your Dawn of Justice, and you could be like, this is really bad. But also watch Batman and Robin. Like, just give that one a shot and see how bad you think Dawn of Justice is afterwards.
Allow me to break the ice. You are not sending me to the cooler. Freeze well. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Stay cool, bird boy. Let's kick some ice. Show some mercy. I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy. All right, everyone, chill.
But just for the sake of that realization, I don't even still want to put people through that. But like, anyway, so now, he's done all this stuff, and now you have this iconic character in Batman, and he plays a villain for an iconic comic book hero. So again, plays a villain. At this point, he's a mega star.
Oh, yeah. Well, another interesting thing about that performance is that a lot of people don't know, Arnold was like at death's door when he was being Mr. Freeze. He had a heart condition and that he needed to get surgery for. And he was basically, it's a testament to what a hard worker Arnold Schwarzenegger was.
Right.
He basically did this entire film while he was very, very ill, and had to take a break from doing movies, in fact, after, because he had so many injuries. And he had to recover his own body because he had sustained so much damage through the years of him doing movie after movie and action scene after action scene and really pushing himself to the limit.
That's super interesting. I mean, it doesn't help the film at all.
No, it does not.
And it doesn't help the character, like just the writing, and there's so many things at fault for it. But that's not the point. The point is that now you have this guy who, he is playing a villain for major action, iconic comic book, action hero or whatever. Then I always like this one because now Arnold decides that he wants to fight the devil. And it's in a little movie called End of Days. And now, so
before that, hold on, just before that, before he does End of Days, right around the time he does End of Days, he also does The Sixth Day and Collateral Damage, which both are movies where he does things again. He like time travels again.
Oh, right,
like,
right.
He's already done all of these things to the point where he's repeating himself when he time travels.
He's repeating himself in time travel.
Yeah, it's just like, I've already seen the Arnold time travel movie.
And in Collateral Damage, isn't he a fireman?
He's a fireman. He's also a clone.
In Collateral Damage? Oh, that's right.
I believe so. Yeah.
No, in
or
Sixth Day. Sixth Day, he's a clone.
Collateral Damage is where he's a fireman that like, fights helicopters or something like that.
Which is, I mean, that's another thing, right? So now he's played a fireman.
Yeah.
But
we have to get to his peak Arnold, which is End of Days.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is first of all, I really enjoy this movie. I always did.
Yeah.
I always did. I always enjoyed like how dark it was and how kind of creepy it was.
It's it's definitely Arnold's, I think, the closest you'll get to a horror film with Arnold.
It's also a role that he plays. Isn't he? He's kind of like a down in the dumps kind of dude.
He's
which
a
he never
figure.
Yeah, which he never really played. Not like this. I mean, he's like not the man.
Yeah,
right?
And
he's got
no romantic interest for Arnold in this. If you watch, there's
not a lot of romantic interest.
Not a lot of love interests in his career, which I always found kind of interesting. It almost makes you wonder if like film producers didn't believe that he would be like a romantic leading man. Like they only saw him as this kind of mountain of muscle.
Yeah.
And but if you look at his films, there's never really any romantic interest for him. Even Total Recall, his wife beats the shit out of him, and then he meets another woman that apparently is in love with him. She doesn't like him either.
No, they don't really like him.
Yeah, neither woman that he's supposed to be involved with in Total Recall likes him at all.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that you have this film, and he's fighting the devil. It's that simple. There's no other way to really.
He punches the devil in his face.
Which I was gonna say that. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
That he gets to do that.
Yeah.
Like think about just as a kid or any person, it doesn't even have to be a kid, someone with an imagination who wants to do these things, right? This man has gotten to do all of these things.
Yeah. And if you, at the time, I think if someone was to be like, well, I mean, who fights the devil in a movie? The most common answer would be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, right. Yeah. And he did it, and it happened.
He doesn't just fight the devil in this movie, though. Just to add a little extra to this, he fights the devil, but spoiler alert, he also becomes the devil in this film. So when you talk about a man who's done it all,
right.
In one film, he fights and becomes the devil, which is, and I guess kills the devil?
He definitely kills the devil.
He kills the devil?
He definitely saves the world.
Yeah. I think he rules hell at the end of that movie.
I don't know
if that's the devil.
I don't think that's
the way
true.
That works.
No, I mean that you're making that up, and it's a cool way that it works.
But I guess that's the way he dies at the end of that movie, and in my head, he just goes to. He's gonna run shit in hell because.
No, I think that's what you wanted the ending to be.
Yeah,
and it's not the ending. The ending is that he sacrifices his life.
Yes,
to save the Earth.
I think I just somehow wanted it to kind of cross with the end of Conan and him to kill Gabriel Byrne and then sit on the throne of hell.
Right.
And just grow old.
Yeah, that's what you wanted.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
But it's definitely not what happened.
Okay.
Sorry. Did I just ruin your life?
No, I mean I'm gonna watch it again to confirm.
Yeah. You're gonna edit a whole other ending and then be like, see?
Yeah, I got my cut of End of Days.
Right.
It's gonna be something that hasn't been done. A lot of people don't remix films.
Right.
But it's something that I'm gonna start.
So yeah, that's funny. So I wanted to mention something now because he goes back and he does. We mentioned Collateral Damage. We mentioned 6th Day, which
this is kind of the tail end.
Yeah.
Before his retirement, essentially. His retirement.
Right. So now, what's kind of cool, and this is an interesting story, and it goes back to even talking about The Rock. We were talking about that, about how The Rock became this mega star, and there's an interesting, cool little thing that I don't think a lot of people recognize. But I sure as hell recognized it. I know
the cameo.
I know you recognized it. So now in the rundown, which is The Rock, one of The Rock's better movies.
Yeah, and a very early, his early kind of, this is a real thing. He's not just a wrestler.
I think it was after the flop that was like Scorpion King or whatever, which is terrible. So now there's an interesting scene. And it takes place in the very beginning. He's walking through a nightclub, and in the nightclub, The Rock is walking, and coming at him is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
Right. And as he's passing him, he looks at him, and I think he says, "Have fun."
Yeah, he says, "Have fun."
Yeah, it's so genius
Mm-hmm.
because there's the passing of the torch thing.
Yeah.
Is so real in that
And
film.
and it is very real, and it's interesting because it's
and
not
a
something
lot
that
of
really
people.
has been. Can you think of any other movie that anyone did that? Kind of pass the torch of like,
No.
oh, now you're the guy. Like
No.
you are the action.
It doesn't
guy.
exist. He's the only one that did it.
Yeah, which again leads me to feel like hey, it's a good guy. Like
He's
good, like it's like he's done just like really interesting things like that. Where it's like again, he's just done things that when you look at his career, it's like he's really led a storied life.
right. I mean, and that's such an selfless act.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're the biggest star in the world, one of the biggest stars in the world, and you know that that was okay. We're not going to say that was Arnold's idea, but it was somebody's idea, and they approached him to do it, and they asked him, and he was like, "Hell yeah!" He was like, "I'll do that." Hell yeah, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it was when he was, he had just ran for governor and won at the time, so he was basically not forced into retirement, but he was going to take like an active retirement from film, and he did for a number, I guess 8 years,
which kind of brings it around full circle, and leads us to now. Not only is he this selfless guy who passes the torch to the next action hero,
which at the time might not have seemed earned. Like at the time, The Rock was still very much in his infancy as an action star. So at the time,
which actually gives it clout.
At the time, it doesn't really seem earned because it was all very new. But when you look now, it's kind of like it was right on the money.
Security? No, but we do have a slight problem.
Have fun.
Right on the money. And again, so like I said, it all comes full circle, and it comes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. He retires from acting, and he becomes the governor of California.
Yep.
Now,
the governor,
not the mayor.
Yeah, not like a small
not city council.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have a seat on some town meeting. He's the governor of one of the biggest states in the country.
He gets elected, and like people want this. Like this, he doesn't like pay his way in. People vote for him.
Yeah, and then vote for him again.
And then vote for him again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at this guy's life. Forget about the career now. Mm-hmm. You look at the guy's life, and it's so insane, the things that he's done and gone through, and then to culminate and have everything come, and his success in the film industry and in pop culture and whatever, being this iconic person. And then all of a sudden now he has this whole other success, and he literally becomes the governor of a state in the United States. And he does, I mean, what people say are a good job. I mean, people liked him as the governor. I'm sure people didn't like him as the governor, but whatever, that's politics. So, but it's pretty crazy to look at, the whole story and the culmination. And then obviously now, he did his thing. He did his politics stuff. He got it out of his system, which is just weird to say anyway, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I got to get it out of my system. I'm going to go be the governor.
I will reach out to Republicans, to Democrats and independents, to those who supported the recall and those who did not, those who supported me today and those who did not. I want to reach out to everybody, to young and old, rich and poor, people of all religions, all colors, and all nationalities. I want to be the governor for the people. I want to represent everybody.
Right? And then he's now back and he's doing films. He didn't do any films as the governor, which obviously
Nope.
I don't even think he could.
He really was dedicated to his job. Didn't do any films.
Didn't do any films. And now he's back. And I wanted to mention something also really quick. I like what Stallone did. Okay, The Expendables, they're not great movies.
No.
The first one is probably the best one.
Mm-hmm.
But what he did was ingenious, in my opinion. He brought together all of these people, right? And it's such a play on words because he's not stupid, Sly, especially with his writing.
Absolutely.
The Expendables, like that makes total sense because it's all people that Hollywood forgot about.
Yeah.
And Arnold is not one of them, but Arnold fits the story that Sly was trying to tell by getting all of these old school action film, action stars and putting them all into one movie.
It was basically the dream movie for 1996. It's like it would have been a dream film in 1994 or something like that, but except it's happening in 2008.
Right. And I don't think that he's in the first one. I don't think
I'm not sure. He might have still been governor when the first one was
I think,
released.
Yeah, I think he came out maybe in like the third one, or whatever. But either way, I mean, he was going to be in one of the films because how could he not be? But yeah, man, I think it's just super cool to kind of go over, quickly like this guy's career and his life.
Yeah. A legacy.
Yeah, I think he did a movie where he was in a zombie apocalypse. Didn't he have like a daughter? Yeah.
Very recently.
I mean, come on, man. Like the guys fought zombies too. Does he die and become a zombie in the movie?
I'm not sure. I have not actually seen it, but I know he does. We're talking about legacy. An interesting note on that is that his son, Patrick Schwarzenegger, is also an actor. And he was recently in a film called Daniel Isn't Real, which is an interesting horror film.
He's not. I'm not talking to you right now. Also, his daughter married Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
What? It's just crazy.
Storied legacy, man.
It just keeps going.
Yeah, just keeps going.
But yeah, so to kind of wrap it all up, we wanted to do this episode because we wanted to kind of pay an homage and talk some good stuff about, the man, the myth, the legend, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is talk about our whole life. Like he's been a literal part of our entire lives.
Absolutely.
Whether it be film, pop culture, whatever. Joking around, doing the voice, doing the accent. Like it's just something that, has been crazy and awesome. But yeah, man, I just wanted to wrap it up that way. Anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, man, go watch some Arnold movies.
Yeah, for real, man.
Celebrate this character.
Yeah, this character, right? Go celebrate all the stuff he's done.
Yeah, he's a cultural character.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen Terminator 2 yet, screw you.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
I'm only kidding. Not screw you. That's me. But go see it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, do yourself the favor.
Yeah, for sure. Watch the first one first, and then watch the second one. All right, bud. We are signing off. We've got company. Episode 5. This was. Hopefully we get this one up, and then we have our 6th episode, which we're going to talk about Blade and the Blade trilogy and the Blade character. So that would be cool. That's going to be fun and awesome. So, man, signing off. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, man.
Later, bud.
Take care, guys.